Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here for today's daily medicine transmission. It is July 8th, 2021, and we are, in fact, the Matrix Breakers. Oh my gosh. How's everyone doing? Welcome back to my subscribers and my regular crew. Your consistent interaction seriously means the world to me, not for my own benefit necessarily, but for the collective benefit. I know that we are on the right track when we're all connecting and vibing together. So I'm going to exit out of studio mode here. And if you're new here, welcome. It's so great to have you here. And as always, whenever you subscribe, like, share, comment, all of those things, it actually does signal to the AI algorithm overlords that this information is actually worth spreading to a larger audience. So if you find it inspiring and helpful, and you think other people would find that as well, when you interact in some way with the content, whether you're on BitChute or YouTube, it actually does impact how this message gets spread to a wider audience. So thank you. So we are the Matrix Breakers, and something massive has shifted, very, very big. And I know that that's like those types of words, those types of phrases are so overused now that they kind of lose their meaning, but I think you will know what I mean. I think that many of us, especially those of you who are vibing on the same wavelength, and are tuning in on a regular basis with these transmissions, something big has shifted. Now, we talked about this yesterday, right? Because of some of the astrological transits that happen, and not so many of the transits necessarily, but the fact that Saturn and Uranus, these larger orbits around the sun, these larger, longer pathways, when they move into the next zodiacal degree, they have an impact on that resonance that it represents, right? And so just like a mandala, it is, this unfolding, beautiful geometric pattern that the astrology represents, right? That is what we're looking at when we look at an astrological chart. We are looking at a 2D version of a third dimensional unfolding, and then the modality itself is a fourth dimensional tool. So something really big has shifted, and I will tell you what, the Agent Smiths are scrambling. They are scrambling big time. They are doing whatever they can to mitigate what is something. Nothing can stop it. Nothing can stop what's coming. And there was a massive changeover. These upgrades coming from Sirius have been so substantial. And I know we've all been feeling it. And it has really, at least for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but at least for me, it has been a very concentrated in that throat chakra area. And it really is our voice, the resonance that comes from that area, that throat chakra, for instance, which, by the way, is tuned to the Schumann resonance at the same time. So that's something to keep in mind, that being able to tap into the natural planetary rhythm, the natural resonance of the earth herself, and nature, right, is, once we tap into that, this is where we can really make an impact. So the Syrian activations have been coming in so strong, and yesterday they really peaked. And I'm going to share this in a post that I write, because it's just, I will be on here for too long if I try to unpack this here. But I did have in my sleep, in my dream, I really actually had a vision and an experience where, there's just too many of us now stepping into our power, receiving the upgrade, right? We are receiving the upgrade. We're open to the upgrade. And as much as it's been uncomfortable, as much as it feels like we've been losing something, and I assure you, some people really are feeling like they're losing something. And that's because they've been doing things for the wrong reasons, haven't they? It all comes out in the wash in the end, doesn't it? But regardless, even if we've been suffering a little bit, right, physically or emotionally, and we seem to be having this really strong upheaval, and it won't stop. Just to be very clear here, where Uranus is, it's now time to really bear down and put our heads down and to face the storm. And our character will be revealed during this time, when Uranus, especially in this this degree of Taurus. But there's so many transits today. We'll get into that. There's so much happening today that is shifting. And we are in our balsamic moon. You know, the moon's going to move into from Gemini into Cancer today. Tomorrow we have a new moon. Tomorrow we have a Syrian new moon. Okay. It's still within a 5-degree orb of Sirius, but the moon and the sun will be conjunct within that 5-degree orb of Sirius. So not only have these light codes been coming in through the sun, and we've talked about this, where these X-class solar flares being released, these CMEs that are really strong, coming through the sun in its conjunction to Sirius. The Schumann resonance, you know, it is definitely having its spikes, but for the most part, there's not much of a buffer. So we're getting the full impact of this upgrade with these light codes, and we're all feeling it. And it feels to me, it's in different parts of my body, but I will say for sure it is starting to consolidate in that throat chakra area, which is what came out really today in my morning meditation and prayer. Just tears streaming, and not even for any singular emotion, just the ability to express through this area, coming through, heart opening, big time, very strong coming through today. So I'm going to write that up because the dream itself was fascinating, and it really did point to the fact that something has shifted now. And like I said, the Agent Smiths, and if you are familiar with the Matrix trilogy, you know exactly who I'm talking about. They are running around scrambling like crazy to mitigate what they cannot actually stop. And in some ways, that Pandora's box got opened in order to try to control us. And it's just going to, every time they make a move like that, it just makes our light shine brighter. It just makes us stronger. And so it's really just, they're really just working against themselves. And that's just how it all has to be, doesn't it? So, like I said, the Syrian activations have been coming in hot. They've been coming in strong. It's been very uncomfortable. People are really feeling it. but I assure you now, there is a reason for that. And something has very drastically shifted. And it's our ability to resonate, to harness the resonance, and to use that ability to actually break the matrix. It's coming through our voice, either through expressing who we are, standing up for our truth, whatever that is, not being afraid. And we saw this in all the reading yesterday, didn't we? We saw that, standing up, despite disapproval from others, standing in our truth, standing in the truth, right, of who we are. Especially with Mars and Venus in Leo, right? And we do have to manage this in a way where it's important that our vessel is able to hold this incredible amount of energy that's activating and coming through. And if it can't, this is where we run into problems. Or if we utilize this energy for our own selfish gains, self-preservation, greed. And sometimes we don't realize that greed is greed. We really do think that we're doing it for the right reasons, right? I'm trying to take care of myself, take care of my future, take care of my family. And it's really... When it comes down to it, you really do have to evaluate what you're using your spiritual, conscious-based gifts for, and that energy for. Is it for the collective good? Is it for the collective upgrade? Is it for this awakening of humanity? Or have you utilized those gifts and that trajectory for a false light agenda? And that's coming up to the surface so strongly right now as well. So lots going on today, and we will look at the reading, we'll look at the astrology, and I know I told you I would put that that prayer up, the Reiki principles with the prayer of bringing in the light. And I do feel like what happened, I mean, I can speak for myself, and I think I can speak for many of us, especially Syrian starseeds. This has been big time for us. Because we hold the resonance of what they represent, and what they are capable of doing. You know, they're so involved with the seeding of Earth, and so involved in the technology of the Atlantean timeline. And it doesn't matter how advanced we get with our technology. If we have not evolved our spiritual consciousness, it will fail. And that's exactly what I mean when people sometimes don't realize that they've been utilizing their gifts, their talents, their spiritual progression, and their consciousness for the quote unquote wrong reasons. And it's because until we have fully evolved our spiritual consciousness, this advanced technology will always fail, because it'll always be used for that Draco purpose, right? The self-preservation purpose. And you want to think about Atlantis as an archetype, you want to think about it as an allegory, or you want to really consider it as part of a multidimensional existence where it's overlaid on right now, right? And we are doing it over again. The lack of spiritual consciousness and allowing in that greed and that self-preservation to infiltrate is what led to the downfall, really. And so we're building, we've built back up to this point again, and now we get to do it differently. But it's not going to come without some real work. So let's get into the reading, get some symbolism here to kind of ground us into this process, and then we'll look at the astrology for today. Oh my gosh. So one thing I posted yesterday that I will reiterate is that Mercury left its post-retrograde shadow yesterday. I'm going to bring up the reading so you can kind of just start looking at it. Mercury came out of its post-retrograde shadow yesterday, and that was coinciding with President Trump's announcement that he is suing the CEOs of Facebook and Google and Twitter, right? Not the companies themselves. He's suing the actual people. He's suing Mark Zuckerberg. He's suing Jack Dorsey. He's suing the CEO of Google. Him as a citizen, and in his lawsuit, he is the main primary plaintiff, I believe, in his lawsuit. And so, of course, there's probably going to be thousands upon thousands of people who were deplatformed from those social media platforms as a result of expressing themselves and their First Amendment rights. So something to keep in mind is Mercury is President Trump's planetary ruler. He's his sun in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini, North Node in Gemini, all in the 10th house, conjunct each other. Mercury is his ruling planet. The sun is his chart ruler because he is a Leo rising, where Mars and Venus are both at. So, but I would just say that it's just too coincidental. There is no coincidence there. Somebody was on my personal Facebook was like, whoever Trump's astrologer is needs to step forward because we got to know who it is. And regardless if he has an astrologer, I'm sure he does. All billionaires have astrologers. Don't mistake it. Don't kid yourself. These people in the highest positions of power and authority and in charge of our global economy all use astrology, okay? Because they're all part of these secret societies that utilize the same energy that they're trying to hijack us with. And it's going to fail. It's going to fail. And I know that it's going to fail because I will explain it to you in the dream that I had, and I will post it. But I just want to reiterate that. So, I mean, it's all going according to plan, whether or not it's intentional, whether or not it's just so tuned in to these cosmic cycles that it couldn't be any other way. Who knows, but his planetary ruler comes out of retrograde shadow in Gemini, where his sun, Uranus, and North Node are in his house of his career. And all of a sudden he announces this big tech lawsuit. So I don't know, something to think about. So we're going to look at this reading today, and at the center here, we do see the Six of Cups, pleasure, right? On our causal factor, there's that 10 of Discs again, reversed again. Ooh, some people are really, here's that scramble, right? Because the 10, no matter what, is the end of a cycle and a beginning of a new one. So Mercury in Virgo, wealth, the 10 of Discs, wealth. It's all of the wealth, all of the resources, all of the assets we've accumulated coming to their fruition, coming to their fullness, and the cycle is ready to start back over. Now, when it's reversed, as we've talked about many times, because this has come up many times, and it is greed, right? It's blinded by wealth. It's blinded by resources, right? And becoming hyper, fixated on this accumulation of material resources and assets. So when it's reversed, I mean, there's a lot of ways, like I said, that we can look at this, but this causal factor here, somebody is feeling like they're losing, and in fact is starting to scramble in order to retain what they feel like they're losing, as opposed to, when this is upright, we accept that we've come to the end of this material cycle and ready to start back over again. This is in fact the harvest moment as we move from the last decan of Virgo, which is what this represents, into Libra, right? The balancing, the form, the form of relationship and balance, right? Libra time of year is when the harvest is allocated to the community and everything is put on the scales and make sure that it's balanced, right? So this causal factor here out in the world is this loss of wealth, blinded by wealth, and that scrambling. The agent smiths are scrambling because they're like, oh shit, they woke up. Like, they're waking up. It's like the tipping point has already passed, but now it's like coming into the, it's coming into the collective, like, consciousness, not so much the unconscious, but the consciousness. And the Syrian activations were a big part of this, because the Syrian star seeds are those who are able to bring the resonance from their sacral chakra, the seat of their creative power, up through and out into a transmitted resonance, right? Chanting, singing, toning, speaking, right? Verbalizing, expressing oneself, expressing emotion, even like the crying, right? The screaming, the laughter. I just couldn't stop laughing this morning. I just could not stop laughing, because it was just like, oh, joke's on you guys. You tried real hard to mitigate this awakening by presenting this false awakening. And all it did was just get people even more on board. So either way you look at it, even if we felt like we've been losing something, right? And many people are going through that kind of purge again through their relationships and in their material world and their resources. It may feel like a loss, and I'm not trying to downgrade that or invalidate that in any way, because these we have to make room for these upgrades, and we've had to let some things go in order to make that space. And that may be all kinds. That can be related to many kinds of things. But I will say, in terms of a causal factor here, this loss, it's really up to us how we look at it. Now, the present moment, at the heart of the matter, which we're going to see is at the heart of us energetically right now, is the Six of Cups, pleasure. Oh my gosh. I'm seriously taking some amount of pleasure in what's going on. That's why I can't stop laughing. Just laughing and laughing and laughing. So one of the things I will share with you in this transmission, I really want to save a lot of it for the written piece, because it's just too good, is that the Syrians, I mean, they're right here. They came in stronger than I've ever felt before, ever, personally. Some people, everybody else has their own connection and relationship to their team. And as a Syrian starseed, they are they're very present a lot of times. But because we had this conjunction with Sirius, we're going to have this new moon that is a Syrian new moon in some ways, sanctifying what is going on within us, right? Sanctifying these it's basically making our commonplace activities and routines, sanctifying them, making them sacred. And it's something as simple. It can be as simple as just shifting our perspective of focusing on the positive aspects. And I'm not saying this as a, because this has been a hijacking as well, right? Just like that whole like positivity movement, and just like, which ends up just bypassing your shadow entirely. But it is about resonance. And there is a pleasure here at the heart of us that we can really tap into, that allows us to feel, yes, something has shifted. And deep emotions that are learned, they're learned through the pain, right? What comes before the Six of Cups, the Five of Cups, the disappointment. And you can tell that disappointment is really here with this 10 of Discs totally reversed. Like, there is so much scrambling to hold on to what is slipping away, especially if it has been created as the result of cheating or wrong reasons, right? For the sake of self-preservation, for the sake of our own abundance, as opposed to looking at it from doing God's work. And this is why when I shifted my personal prayer around the Reiki principles of just for today, I am God's light, man, that shifted everything for me, because it stopped being about me and what I wanted. And it's not to say that we shouldn't take care of ourselves and that we don't deserve to have abundance and to be comfortable, right? But there's enough to go around. There is more than enough on this planet to go around, even with the population that we do have. It's just a matter of, pulling it in towards you all the time and only focusing on ourselves. So there's deep emotion that we've learned our lesson, right? At the heart of the matter here, we feel this deep emotion and this harmony, balance and harmony, by returning to the inner sources of our strength, the inner sources of our power, and the real potential that communion and cooperation in the service of humanity can really bring. And so it's not like the Three of Cups where we're like, oh, abundance, like it's kind of this conceptualization of where we could go. It's really comes out of a deep disappointment or a deep pain that we've had to go through, and now we're coming out of it going, oh, I see now, and I feel and express myself through this. And this was the sting of the Scorpio, right? When Juno's passing over, and it's still here. Juno is passing over Antares as we speak, and over the next week or so is going to continue through this transit. Asteroid Juno in her retrograde transit is going to be passing over the South Node right now. It's going to be passing over Antares, the heart of the Scorpion. So there's so much to learn from all of that pain and disappointment and the deception that we have come to terms with. And maybe this 10 of discs is reversed, is the deception, right? And everything kind of slipping through our fingers as a result of like, oh shit, like I didn't, it was all built on sand, right? It wasn't built on anything substantial. And now in the heart of the moment, the pleasure, right? The deep emotions learned through pain, not just like this surface level positivity that's bypassing, but the real harmony and beautiful pleasure emotionally that comes from a balance and returning to inner source. So this is at the heart of the matter today. And where we are energetically rooted in this is this Two of Forces, right? The willow. We've talked about the willow before, many times actually. And this is about a strong foundation capable of standing up to anything, right? This tree is firmly rooted in the earth next to the stream, right? Is able to draw on the waters of our soul in order to nourish and take care of itself. Also, the sun is shining. Here are those Syrian light codes coming right in and giving, plants are a natural quantum being, right? Plants do something that is really our destiny, right? Because plants take photons and turn it into food. And there's a whole process that photosynthesis follows, but it's a quantum process. It defies classical physics. Even though we can kind of identify how this process happens, where a photon comes in and it's a chain reaction of electrons moving in order to eventually create sugar for the plant to eat, it defies classical physics, right? And so anyway, these Syrian light codes are coming in, and it's very much similar, right? Our brains are a quantum computer, right? And so, but we have to have the scaffolding, we have to have the capacity, the strong root system, the stabilization, and we have to believe that we can operate in a similar fashion where we can take these light codes and this, what is light? It's information coming in and turning it into sustenance to sustain us. And so this is where the root is, subconsciously running in the background, perhaps, maybe not so much. And where do you access your subconscious? Your dream state. This is why rest is important. And what's really important is to get into REM sleep and stage 4, because this is where it really all goes down, right? So this is where we are rooted, right? Or we can be rooted. This is what's happening at the base energetically, is this willow. And so there's a very calm and peaceful energy about this. It's not all erratic and crazy. And it can feel that way sometimes if we're not rooted or grounded. So, but it's, as much as it's calm and peaceful, it's powerful. It's got strength to it, right? This willow is flexible in the wind and the movements, but at the same time, it's completely firm. It's rooted. And where does, a plant does take in moisture in its leaves, but where does it really draw water from? Its roots. Its roots, which is the Virgo, which is what Virgo represents. It's the roots. And the process of the roots taking what it needs from the soil, water, minerals, all this other stuff. So again, this 10 of discs being reversed, I mean, there is some serious rot to these roots, right? There is some sort of root rot here that will not sustain it, that many of us maybe have come to terms with and allowed these upgrades to happen and allowed ourselves to heal, right? This, and whatever that means, we settle karmic contracts, we identify that we have root rot, and that it is not allowing us to fully gather in or we have gathered it in, and we're like, shit, this is rotten. Like, this is not sustainable. But I would say that because this horizontal axis here is really about what's happening outside of us, or what we're seeing in the world reflected from within. So, but where we are actually rooted energetically as starseeds, as light workers, as truth seekers and wanderers, is that we are rooted. We are safe, we are strong, we are capable, and we draw what we need from the world around us. Okay. Trees and plants seemingly seem like they are still, but they're living, and they, like I said, they defy classical physics. They are quantum beings. Okay. I learned this very directly when I started working with cannabis on a regular basis as a grower. This is where a lot of the Syrian nature actually came online for me, is because I started communicating directly with these plants. And cannabis is an incredibly potent plant medicine if used properly. Just like anything else, as soon as you start abusing it, it loses that potency and becomes something that we are addicted to, and it bypasses, right? It allows us to bypass our own healing. So this is where we are rooted. And as we move up through this 6 of Cups energy, right, the real pleasure of coming out of deep pain and disappointment and really feeling balance and harmony, we're open to the message of Archangel Gabriel, the divine messenger, right? He wears the crest of Mercury on his chest. He's got the trumpet, wings spread, right? Sacred words of truth coming in. So this is where our conscious awareness is. This is where we can allow the messages to come in. If we are rooted in this strength, if we're rooted in this place of calm strength and peaceful strength of the willow, then we can allow these messages to come in. And these light codes, like I said, light codes, it's just information. It's just information. And so they're coming in hot, and they're coming in strong. And now they're being integrated into an upgraded vessel for many of us that are at least on this transmission. Okay, way ahead of the curve, way ahead. If you're getting this, okay. And it's not to say that, and this is part of the quickening. I finally did post it on Telegram. This is part of the quickening, right? And not everybody chose to opt in, right? Some people are just kind of sitting back and taking a breather in their lower 4D, and that's totally fine. We all have free will, and there's no right or wrong to this. But those of us who did choose to go, it's happening real fast now. And so again, Archangel Gabriel represents the divine messenger and communication. It's coming in. It's coming in hot. And Mercury has now left its post-retrograde shadow in the late degrees of Gemini. So just be aware that the advanced light codes are coming in big time. And where is this leading? Oh, look at that. Our Fool card, right? The total beginner's mind. perfect state of the infinite future where every possibility is a possibility in the infinite now moment, right? This is where it's leading to. Oh my gosh. It's why I was like tears streaming, and then I just couldn't stop laughing, because here we are. This is where it leads to. And every possibility is a possibility when you strip it all down to the beginner's mind, the infinite now moment and the perfect state of being, right? Innocent, open, the beginning and the end, right? The 0 point is what the full represents. And this is where we create reality from, is from this state, not in any other state. It starts here. And this is why the tarot starts with the fool's journey, doesn't it? Because you have to be completely open and ready to receive, not somebody else, but just be in full connection to divine source, to God, however you want to characterize this, the creator and the creator source that's within us. Okay, this is so exciting, and I'm really excited to be able to give this transmission today. Let's see what's going on here. All right. Now the guidance that's coming in, the Four of Forces. Okay, spring, right? And what's a time of spring? It's a time of planting. It's a time of active participation. It's a time where we anticipate growth. So we prepare the soil, we till the soil, we condition the soil, like we start planting the seeds, right? And so it might be time to put in a little more extra effort. And where can we put that effort? Creating a sacred space. And, you can think about this literally in terms of creating that pocket of time where you go into silence, right? Where you quiet your mind, that you are able to be still, right? And really be in that present moment. But I would also encourage you to look at this as creating your vessel, your body, like yourself as the sacred space, right? Create the sacred space so that this growth can actually happen. And so how do you do that? Like I said, you carve out some time in your day. You have a space where no one's going to bother you. For me in the morning, like I close the door and my nobody, I'm alone during the day in terms of my work, but I even keep out the animals, right? Nobody's allowed in here during that time so that I can be undisturbed. And that is really important. Give yourself the opportunity to carve this time and space out, even for just like 3 minutes, right? Because once you practice this, you can drop in an instant. So giving yourself the space to do this is really, really important. And to help, even just walk outside, take your shoes off and step on the ground and take a deep breath, sit under a tree, right? Whatever it is you need to do, create your become the sacred space, because this is really important. Because if we do not become the sacred space for this upgrade that's happening, then we are controllable. Right? We become somebody else's, somebody else. We belong to somebody else at that point. We become somebody else's puppet. We become somebody else's robot. We become somebody else's vessel. So it's important that you create your sacred space as part of the work to put in for this growth that we are anticipating here. And this is, again, where we're energetically meant to be rooted here. Now, the rattlesnake, initiation. This is an initiation process, this opening, this activation, these upgrades that are coming in that we have to allow to happen. This is initiation into fulfilling our purpose, ultimately as a healer, not as like, and that's what the Syrian starseeds, they come in and they tend to be the energy workers, the shamans, the healers, the people who know how to walk between worlds and heal. And they're very protective, right? What is a rattlesnake? I mean, what they do? They shake that rattle on the end of their body to warn you to get the fuck away from them, right? They're actually not very aggressive unless they are feeling threatened, and they'll let you know again. So it's kind of, they will protect and they will be aggressive if they need to. They will do what they need to do to protect themselves and their young, for instance. But they'll let you know. And this is about initiation, isn't it? And the true healer heals from the heart. not from anywhere else, not from a skill set, not from like all of this, really complicated spiritual jargon and being able to do this, that, channel this, that, do this, that, whatever. It doesn't matter. A true healer heals from the heart, which is why Reiki is, as far as I'm concerned, is like the highest in terms of healing, because when you channel Reiki and then you channel and transmit, or you are a channel and it transmits itself essentially. Where does it come through? It comes through the heart, right? It comes through the heart. If you are doing Reiki if you are a Reiki practitioner, Reiki master, it comes through the heart. You bring it down, and I bring it down and up at this point. And I think that may be an evolved version of Reiki. It's certainly not how I learned the Asui version of Reiki, but I think that it's evolving and it works for me. It comes into the heart and then out through the hands, doesn't it? And so this is about the heart. This isn't about anything that's going to fulfill your ego. This isn't about any masterful skill set, although those are really helpful, but true healing comes from the heart. And this whole process and this activation, the upgrades, the receiving of the light codes, again, is upgrading us into a healer, because that's really where we're going to be the most needed soon, is in this healing modality, right? Is because people are going to need this level of spiritual healing that they can't get from the mainstream. They just can't, right? And there are many ways that this can be done, but it's important to realize that not only is this upgrade initiating us, we need to allow it to come into the heart and open the heart. And beyond that, the Akashic Library as well, it's time to go deeper than we've ever gone. We already know that going down into the Akashic Library is already traveling into these deeper layers of who we are, where we've been, where we're going, right? All of our Akash, that record of our soul's journey and evolution. But when it's reversed, as we see in the reading, it's time to go deeper, way deeper than we ever planned. So again, remember that it's going to get way more difficult and challenging. We're really going to be tested, especially when September comes, when we start coming out of the retrogrades of Saturn and Jupiter, and from September onward through January 2022. I mean, Red October, we all thought Red October was going to be last year, and I really do see now that it's really going to be a lot more this year, for sure, as all these retrogrades, Neptune coming out of retrograde, Saturn coming out of retrograde, Jupiter coming out of retrograde, right? That's all going to be this cascading effect in the fall into the winter. And so in the meantime, it's time to go deeper, way deeper. Now we've expanded and upgraded, and we know what our potential is now. And so we have to allow ourselves to get even deeper into this process so that we don't get led astray. Like I said, the Agent Smiths are working overtime right now, and that means we have to work. I wouldn't say work harder or work overtime. We just have to be vigilant, right? Remember yesterday with the walrus, be vigilant. We can't slack now. We can't slack as we go into this process. Okay, so that's the reading. Let's look at the chart for today and go from there. So how's everybody? I'm going to check in with the stream here real quick. I hope everybody's doing well, taking care of ourselves as much as possible. Oh, here's our chart for today. And there is a lot happening in this chart. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday because the moon came into a conjunction with Mercury, now out of its retrograde shadow. We're going to move back to that. But at the very same time, it's making all these other connections. Okay. So number one, not only is it in a conjunction with Mercury, now out of retrograde shadow, the revelation of archetypal forms, right? It's an essential rhythm of existence. Not only is it conceptualized, but now we're having a direct intuitive connection, right? And that became very clear overnight. Check, how are your dreams? What are they speaking? What are they speaking to you? What is going on in your subconscious that you're not actively engaging in your awake time that is very obvious to you when you're sleeping? One thing I will say about cannabis is that when I abstain, which I am now, man, the dreams come through way clearer. And I've heard that from other people as well, is that when they're habitually using cannabis, especially smoking it, because I've been taking a lot of CBD right lately, like oral, like edible CBD for my physical pain. And so I'm sleeping very deeply, but that doesn't impact my dreams. It seems to be the THC that has this impact because it is the psychoactive part of it. When I abstain from cannabis, it comes through really strong. So if you do use cannabis habitually or self-medicate that has THC, and you find that it's really hard to remember your dreams or really have them be clear, I would recommend abstaining. And it doesn't have to be forever. It's just abstain, and you'll see that the messages will come in a lot clearer and sharper. Now, that makes everything come in clearer and sharper in your waking life too, which is why a lot of people self-medicate with cannabis, because not only does it allow you to be more tapped in and creative in some ways, takes the edge off, allows you to access these other brainwave patterns. It does with habitual use. Like I said, when you abuse it, it doesn't function that way anymore, and it tends to start suppressing, and it makes you archon bait, right? When you are using cannabis constantly, it allows other things to come in. It opens your channels so much that if you don't know how to master them, you leave yourself open. Anyway, that's just an aside about dreams, because you were getting so much of this upgrade in our sleep, in these dream states. So not only is the moon making this connection to Mercury as last night, it also was in a quincunx to retrograde Pluto, and also in a square to Vesta. Okay, where Vesta is at right now, you're not going to see it on this chart, but I'm going to tell you, it has moved into that 26 degrees of Virgo. It is now when we start to step out in the actual participation of the evolution of humanity. It is all, we've been going through our training, we've been conditioned, right? We're going through the process of disciplining ourselves, all of the Virgo type of energy, right? That root system functioning. This degree is about stepping out into actual participation now. So the thing that's really a struggle about this, and because not only is the moon making all these connections, we also can look forward to see that Mercury is going to quincunx Pluto. Mercury is going to square Vesta. Vesta is also going to square, let's see here. Hold on one second. Yeah, and then Vesta is in a trine to Pluto, right? An Earth trine as well. And so we feel that it's time to step up, like we have to step out and actually participate in the process now. We've gone through all this training, and Vesta is the fire within us. It is that spark that sustains us and the community, the hearth fire. And now it's time to bring that fire out and bring it into the fray. And it's the thing about the moon making that square, that Mercury making that square, the quincunx from Mercury to Pluto, and then the trine is that in our minds, and even in this emotional connection here with the moon, this deep intuitive nature, because she's getting pretty close to her home now. She's getting stronger, even though she is getting way darker. So it becomes way more embedded in the recesses of our subconscious. It's not as bright anymore as we're in this balsamic phase. So again, this is not a great time to initiate anything. It's really with the new moon that we start to initiate things and plant those seeds. Just like I said, with the four forces, we can anticipate that there's new growth coming. And so we want to create space for it. And this is a great time to do it. And so we do have this notion here of stripping it all down to the basic archetypal forms of this and that, black and white, yin and yang, whatever, with the Gemini energy, like it's like bare trees covered, in snow. It's just the very basic essence. The challenge here with Vesta is like, okay, I've been training all of my priestesses. It's now time for them to step out into their role, right? And this is going to be challenging. And the quincunx to Pluto, I mean, again, Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, we've talked about this endlessly, especially the retrograde, like going back over and really digging out all of the garbage that has been way under the surface that we didn't even catch the first time. Now, remember what Pluto is: our power of transformation, our soul's power of transformation, the final word. And this degree of Capricorn is being able to tap into the quote unquote hidden flow of spiritual energy, the water, right? Nature spirits that are dancing in a waterfall, right? It's the idea that under the surface, it's like an underground river, right? We're tapping into this bountiful energy that's usually hidden, and this is our soul's transformation. We have to go back into it now and really harness it. And there's a lot that's getting destroyed about and that's where the false light is getting destroyed, right? It's not what we think it is. And this is actually, assisting us. But the quincunx here, right? This quincunx, right? This 150-degree angle, it's making it really difficult, to fit these two pieces together, where we come into an awareness on a mind level and on an intuitive level of the essential archetypes of this whole process. And at the same time, we still have to come into a very deep knowing, right? Something so deep, something so inaccessible usually, but it's really our power of transformation of like the hidden elements of reality, tapping into the deeper wellspring, right? Watch the water, and really watch the water, because it's not actually what we think it is. So this quincunx is going to force us to adjust ourselves in some way. And again, this was overnight in the dream state. And again, the Agent Smiths, they are working overtime. And I think that this is where they're working overtime, because these transits don't just affect us, they affect everybody, including those who are using these astrological transits for their own nefarious purposes. So they have to adjust themselves too, and they are definitely adjusting themselves. So be mindful of that. Just because they're scrambling doesn't mean they're not going to figure something out. They're adjusting themselves too. We have to be vigilant about that. And again, the square here to Vesta is that we do have to, as much as we recognize the essential archetypal nature of all of this, we still have to change, right? That square to Vesta, these are mutable squares here from Gemini to Virgo, and they're both ruled by Mercury, right? So we go from light, right? Let there be light. We understand the essential nature of the light, but we also have to actually apply it in some way to be of service, right? And this is where people get stuck. This is where they get stuck in the false light. And it's not that it's false. It's just if you don't add the Virgo nature to the Gemini nature, right? If you just get the Luciferian nature, right? They're inseparable from each other, right? The Luciferian nature is the Mercury in Gemini, right? The access to the light in and of itself. The Virgo nature is the Christ nature. It is bringing it into form, into service, right? You are bringing it into service, and disciplining yourself, humbling yourself, purifying yourself to be a vessel for creator source light, not just using the light for your own reasons. This is the difference that people, I don't think, really understand. Okay? So again, the square here with Vesta and Virgo, that is just like, okay, it's time to you to start walking the walk here, right? It's time to you to start bringing it out and walking the walk. And the square to be like, I just want to take in the light codes. I just want to take them in. I feel them. I get it. I understand the essential nature of all of it. This is where we have to change. And again, it's all happening at the very same time overnight. This already happened. So I'd be really curious to see how this is unfolding for people as we go through this process. Now, what else is happening? So the moon immediately moves from that point and then goes into a square with Pallas Athena. Pallas Athena is in is in Pisces, right? Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategy in war, right? She is in this position where she's drawing our attention to the strategy of reaping what we have sown, right? That it's full abundance. It's all there for us to take. Everything has come full circle, and we see the fullness of what we have grown, we've reaped, or sown and cultivated, right? And again, the square to the moon, right? Another mutable square on the other side of things is that we have to let go, right? We have to let go. And bankruptcy is a term that is directly connected to this Sabian symbol here, is that we have to let go of, and bankruptcy allows an overburdened mind or consciousness to have a new start, right? To just forgive. It's about the forgiving of debts, right? That's essentially what bankruptcy is. It's like you've accumulated so much debt. And so when you acknowledge that, and you acknowledge that you can't just like keep accumulating it, or you can't pay it off, it's forgiven, but you have to ask for it, right? And so the moon is in this forgiveness pattern. But the strategy here is to reap what is sown. And again, the square here is going to force us to change on some level, right? We're just going to have to lean into the discomfort of that, because as much as we are forgiven and allowed to have our overburdened consciousness be forgiven and to let go of for a new start, the square to Pallas is like, yeah, but there's a strategy here that has to do with reaping what is sown. And so this is going to be really challenging, I think, or has been, right? Because again, that was exact overnight. So much happened hours ago with these transits. Then Mercury comes into that square with Vesta. Exactly. And then the moon moves into Cancer. And when did this happen? Let's see here. The moon has moved into Cancer as of probably now, any minute now, if not already exactly as we're doing this. And so what is 0 degrees Cancer? Well, it's the solstice point. It is a decision, right? It is when we raise the new flag. We have a radical reorientation of our allegiance. We stabilize ourselves in a position and go, this is where I belong. This is where my loyalty lies. This is what protects, and this is where my faithfulness goes, just like that dog, right? The dog in the spirit messages, the spirit animal guide messages, right? Whom do you serve? Well, the moon comes into Cancer, and we feel very, very deeply where that is, okay? It might not even be something we're consciously aware of, especially with the balsamic moon in Cancer. Powerful, but not illuminated. And so what happens after this? The moon comes into a trine with Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, right? We can expand our consciousness by stabilizing our point of view at a much higher level, right? Magic carpet land, right? Hovering. We can hover over this large area and stabilize our point of view at this higher level when we expand our consciousness. Now it's a trine to Jupiter in Pisces that's in this position of the necessity for caution and to protect ourselves, because in Pisces there are no boundaries, so everything is susceptible to everything else and influence, and so there's a need to protect yourself from those who are hunting you. And Jupiter is retrograde, and so Jupiter is our advocate. Jupiter is the thrower of the thunderbolt. And I've talked about this many times. It depends on, if you've garnered favor with Jupiter, he's going to protect you. If you've pissed him off, you're going to get the thunderbolt. And it really depends. It depends on where you're at with Jupiter. And so this moon in a trine to Jupiter, right, getting that structural support and foundational support that we can hover above the whole thing while kind of watching the show, which is very interesting. From here, another major transit, Venus, comes into a square with Uranus today. Oh boy. So Uranus has moved into a very, very intense degree now, right? And we talked about this yesterday, that Uranus has moved into a degree that has shifted from revitalizing ourselves from a connection to the earth and natural energy. I hope we've been doing that, because now it's time to get down to business, right? This is where we brave the storm, where we put on our hat, we we kind of like shelter ourselves, put our head down and go for it. And this is where our character is really revealed, is where Uranus is right now. And Venus, I mean, she's on a parade float right now. This sensational release of energies and this dramatizing thing of just like, look how, like I said, she's on a parade float going through the streets, and, Venus in Leo loves the attention. She pulls it towards her, right? She is the diva in Leo. My gosh. And so in a square to Uranus, which is, that innovation, that futuristic, outside of the box, revolutionary planet, right? That tips everything on its side so our perspective changes and we wake up. These two aspects are going to be squaring each other, and in a fixed square. So be mindful that, it's going to be really tempting to be like, ooh, I'm on the center. I am the center of this parade, and I'm on my parade float, and I'm just waving at everybody and totally dramatizing my unconscious aspirations, right? But at the same time, Uranus is going to be a pretty, it's like turning the corner and the hailstorm is like right there, right? All of a sudden, it's just like, whoa, there it is. And so that's going to be a big challenge for today as well. Pluto, I talked about that. Pluto comes along and is in a trine to asteroid Vesta, right? Again, structural support. With where Pluto is, this Earth trine, it's time to step out and start participating in this process with all of the training, all of the purification, all of the discipline of the priestesses, right? You don't have to be female or even identify with your feminine nature. It's just an archetype to get you to see that the priestesses in these societies represented that part of ourselves that gives over to the community their entire being. They are there to maintain the hearth fire for the sustainment of the community. Now it's time to step out and actually like carry the candle up to the altar, right? And so it's in trine to Pluto, completely supported and supporting where Pluto is just, doing Pluto's work, right? Which is just getting down into the deeper wellspring of the water and our feeling and our emotion, pulling back the curtain on the false light, the false source of light, the false spirit, right? It's really about the false spirit, right? Pulling it back even further. And it's like, oh, I thought this was the underground spring. Nope. I'm going to pull it back and destroy a bunch of other things to be like, oh, I see now. Now it's time to step forward. It's time to step forward and light the candle on the altar. And there's a lot of support for this today. Wow, there's just so much going on. And we're, like I said, tomorrow is the new moon, right? The new moon in Cancer that's within, a 4-degree orb of Sirius, right? So we have a Sirian full moon that's going to sanctify these sanctify us in this upgrade, right? It's up to us to plant that seed and to allow everything that we do to be sacred. Okay, there is no separation anymore, and between our physical pleasures and our physical nature of materialism and value and spiritual nature. We can't separate them anymore. And this is how Atlantis failed the first time, right? Or at all, is that we weren't spiritually conscious enough to handle what was coming in, which was essentially the Tesla technology. And they've tried to recreate this many times over, right? You go to any place that has ancient pyramids and you know that that's what they were trying to do, is to recreate this situation. We haven't, but now we're on the pathway to this spiritual awakening, and it's the only way that we are going to be able to harness this level of energy without destroying ourselves. And the joke's on them, because they keep trying to do it, and they are doing it, or they think they're doing it by, embedding us with the scaffolding, the upgraded scaffolding for us to be able to be connected to some sort of grid, right? And the reality is that we figured it out, and now our consciousness is able to mitigate this process and control it. There's no outside grid that's going to control us if we are awake to the process. It's our own resonance and our own consciousness that can be in total control of this scaffolding that they have in fact embedded. And I would encourage you to start looking up graphene, not graphite, graphene. And not what people are telling you necessarily in the news right now about how it's toxic and how you find it in the vaccines and all this other stuff. Just start looking up graphene, what it's made of, right? What its properties are, what its potential is in a technological aspect. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that for now. That's something that you can go down for yourself and see what comes up. All right, because there's what's the point if you just get spoon fed? You gotta do the work yourself in some ways. But I am going to plant that seed, and that's not me coming to figure that out necessarily. That's come from another source who's really, really in the know, and has been talking about this for at least the last year. So if you're interested in that source, I will certainly share it with you at some point. And wait, there was one more piece. Oh yeah. So if you've been following me since I started this channel, you'll know that I have been talking about this scaffolding upgrade, and I was really hyper fixated on it being a diamond template, right? Because diamond is all carbon, right? Diamond can handle heat and handle upgrades and upgraded energy, higher frequency energy, right? It has a piezoelectric effect. Diamond is able to transfer heat and energy across its surface. This is why it's such a valuable thing, and it's just carbon atoms stacked together in a really tight formation, and is created over time naturally by pressure and heat of carbon, like fossils and things like that. Carbon material that's embedded in the earth, right, turns into diamond. And so I was really fixated on this. I was like, it's got a diamond core as the scaffolding, the upgraded scaffolding in order for humanity to be able to step into the quantum potential. And then I realized very recently in the last week or so, as a result of access to this information, and you're going to start seeing it come out. It's coming out now, but it's not correct. That's all I'm going to say about it. You have to do the research for yourself to understand what's going on. But what I will say is that graphene is, in fact, just carbon atoms, but it's a atomic layer thin carbon atoms that makes it flexible. It makes it malleable. It's conductive to electricity. Unlike diamond, it actually conducts electricity, which means it emits a magnetic wave, right? It emits a magnetic wave because it conducts electricity. And what does a magnetic wave? Frequency, right? Okay, that's enough for that. I could talk all day about that. So tomorrow, new moon in Cancer. We'll talk all about the astrology tomorrow during the transmission. We'll talk about the new moon, and we'll talk about what to expect as this lunar cycle unfolds, what's going on in this entire lunar month, including a Chiron retrograde. So it'll be exciting. We're in exciting times right now. The upgrades have been very successful. It hasn't been easy. It's going to be a lot more difficult, and the quickening is here. But realize that even if you don't know what's going on, just like Carrie Kay said, if you don't know what's going on, it's okay, because it's moving faster. You have to trust your gut. You have to be the fool, right? You have to be the fool. Beginner's mind, infinite potential and possibility in the now moment, the 0 point. All right, guys, I love you. I got to eat something. I need to ground myself seriously right now. If you're interested in a reading or energy work, you can book through catalystenergies.net in the description box below. Link up on Telegram, definitely. And Facebook, if you're still using Facebook, in order to stay updated when I drop my transmissions, when I publish pieces on insights and channelings and things like that. So I hope everybody's doing well. Please take very good care of yourselves. Don't stop doing that. Moon in Cancer, it's going to be lovely. She's very powerful here, but she's dark. So it's important that we just allow ourselves to be the sacred space for this process to happen. And if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out, and conversations are great. So I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.